Ladies and gentlemen, the Queen. It has been a long time since my last speech, subjectively longer than you can possibly imagine. If we assume that a person's perception of life changes with experience, as we acquire new ones, mine has been an epoch. An epoch which resulted in an unbelievable transformation of the core value, the life itself. All of us are alive. The animals living with us on the planet Earth are alive. Plants are alive. I am not sure if rocks, rivers, and the air are alive too, or if there is life in them. Life is everywhere. Life used to be precious, invaluable actually. I do no longer see all life that way. Either it is a hostile extraterrestrial invasion that takes over human beings and makes them inhuman, or humankind, the humankind, this humankind, have fallen a victim to a virus, competing with the pestilence of COVID. Whichever is the case, there are more and more people so inhumanly destructive of the life we all ought to respect, that they do become the valueless life. A changed quality of life, boiling down to the deadly threat to life. The threat being executed each day. In the despair and circumstances, on life travels certain and uncertain. Certain of what was dear, uncertain of the direction. Where do I go now? Especially that I am imprisoned in a prison beyond the most horrifying horror of horror. Such a situation inspires reviews of life, own life, and one can be truly surprised by new discoveries. It might give a sense of paranoia if you find what I have found. For as I have been looking at people and situations, I have found enemies in my former friends. Not now, when I am in trouble indeed. All my life. It does sound like a paranoia, doesn't it? And yet it is so true. Painfully true. It is important to ask oneself the question: what has been being attacked from the beginning to the misfortunate now? My capacity. It is most clear when I look at the time of education. The primary school, the secondary school, the university, even the advanced organization Sandhill, UK, where I went to study Scientology. The real insanity, however, started when I opened my own academy, when I gave it a unique shape, when I developed my own paradigm. The war over the academy has been very expensive, and these are not financial terms that I mean primarily. That implies there must be something essentially precious in my academy, in my devotion to learning, study, thinking, and teaching. What is it? Perhaps this is the truth. Not many have it. The scope of physical devastation the ruin of social relations, the pain of the losses, the daily suffering becoming even more unbearable and traumatic recently, the sense of anguish have convinced me, and today I have decided to take a royal step, and instead of giving myself to the leisure of reading what I want when I feel like, I have created an academic program for this year of study time. The 1st of October, a new academic year begins. I shall not work as the academic. I resume the more private, intimate experience of my traditional university. But I give it a new name, the Royal University of Honestia. And I am giving it an old new curriculum in a slightly new academic reality. May power rise. The Royal University of Honestia takes over the Honestian Academy organizing principles at the basis. But I have created a number of study books, a number of study blocks, assuming the 5-day working week to be the natural study time. Currently, the Academy has 11 faculties. The Faculty of Fine Arts and Literature, the Faculty of Superb Education, the Faculty of Health and Beauty, the Faculty of PR, the Faculty of Histories, the Faculty of Philosophy, the Faculty of Politics and Diplomacy, the Faculty of Law, the Faculty of Finance, the Faculty of Natural and Supernatural Sciences, and the Faculty of Astronomy, Astrology, and Extraterrestrial Life. I have decided to make the ties between the Faculty of Fine Literature and Arts and the Faculty of Superb Education stronger. So in the creation of my study blocks, they come together quite often. Not much has changed apparently. There is still a clear focus on a multitude of foreign languages: English, French, Spanish, German, Russian, Italian, Norwegian, Hungarian, Latin, Arabic, Hebrew, Hindi, and Tibetan. There is still the interest in literature and a safe grounding in the histories of the English and the Polish ones. The world literature added. The outstanding names are still the ones that have been particularly dear or were at some point of time in my life dear or valid, then or now or for the future. Shakespeare, Słowacki, Mickiewicz, Norwid, Krasiński, Blake, Coleridge, Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, Byron, Lawrence, Hemingway, Goethe, Schiller. Still romantic on the whole. Jane Austen having her place in women's literature. My second opus magnum, the work on my own way of reading and teaching literature, is divided into basic study areas at the research level: theory of literature, philosophy of literature, worlds in literature, the former reality. But there is a place for theatre and Polish poetry as separate fields. The perspective is open into particular attention given to the history of painting, the history of music, the history of architecture, apart from the history of arts, fine arts. Specific interest in Jan Matejko and Vincent van Gogh. Also noted as outstanding before. In terms of practical arts, drawing. A close alliance with a faculty of health and beauty focused on biographies, autobiographies, and works, looking for the spiritual beauty. Finally, the Faculty of PR and Extra, the Honestian brand. I go back in the history of Honestia to the very beginnings, when Honestia was called Napolitania, and the very first inspirations, when I had no idea anyone could ever attack such an invaluable enterprise. The Academy had a spiritual patronage by my choice, or perhaps by a mutual choice. And these are John Paul II, the Pope, and the Dalai Lama, the Holinesses. The history unfolding made Honestia fight in the most atrocious war. But the Royal University of Honestia is free to study the thought as saved in books. This is the first page. On the second page, I united the Faculty of Histories, the Faculty of Philosophy, the Faculty of Politics and Diplomacy, the Faculty of Law, and the Faculty of Natural and Supernatural Sciences. There are the history of the world and particular development in the history of Poland, the history of the United Kingdom, the history of India, the history of Germany, the history of the United States, and the history of Tibet. Still particularly, the history of the Roman Catholic Church. Then the history of philosophy, the philosophy of the 19th century, ideas, monarchies, and the left wing, for the Faculty of Philosophy. The theory of law, the history of human rights, and the freedom of speech in the United States, for the Faculty of Law, and two directions for the Faculty of Natural and Supernatural Sciences: world religions, sacred books, mythologies, interpretations on the one hand, and on the other, the history of science, inventions and technologies, popular science, the introduction to exact and natural sciences, maths, chemistry, physics and biology, the philosophy of science and psychology. As an extra for the Faculty of Finance, basic terms for economy and languages in business: English, German and Russian. The Faculty of Astronomy, Astrology and Extraterrestrial Life remain present in the Royal University of Honestia in the same way the Faculty of Astronomy, Astrology and Extraterrestrial Life remains present in the Royal University of Honestia in the same way it was present in the Honestian Academy. What I am given to know. Let me present the blocks now. There are 15 of them. The first block: English, French, Spanish, German and Russian. The second one: the history of English literature, the history of Polish literature, the history of world literature, the theory of literature, the philosophy of literature, philosophy of literature, theory of literature, the theory of literature, philosophy of literature. Block 3. The history of painting, the history of music, the history of architecture, the history of art, fine arts, theater. Block 4. Polish poetry, Juliusz Słowacki, Adam Mickiewicz, Cyprian Kamil Norwid and Krasiński. Block 5. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, William Wordsworth, Percy Bysshe Shelley, John Keats and Lord Byron. Block 6. William Shakespeare, William Blake, D.H. Lawrence, Ernest Hemingway, Women's Literature. Block 7. Goethe, Schiller, Wells in Literature, Jan Matejko, Vincent van Gogh. Block 8. Italian, Norwegian, Hungarian, and Troll. Block 9. Latin, Arabic, Hebrew, Hindi, and Tibetan. Block 10. The world history, the history of Poland, the history of the United Kingdom, the history of Germany, the history of the United States. Block 11. The history of philosophy, the 19th century philosophy, ideas, monarchies, the left wing. Block 12. The history of India, the history of Tibet, the theory of law, the history of human rights, the freedom of speech in the USA. Block 13. Popular science, the history of science, inventions and technologies, introduction to exact and natural sciences, the philosophy of science, an introduction, or the introduction, the philosophy of science and psychology. Block 14. The history of the Roman Catholic Church, world religions, sacred books, mythologies, interpretations, the thought of John Paul II, the thought of Dalai Lama, biographies, autobiographies, and works. Block 15. Basic terms for economy, foreign languages in business, English, German, and Russian. Ladies and gentlemen, there is truth in our daily life, as simple as not telling lies. There is the truthfulness of life, enhancing integrity. And there are bigger truths revealed to us as we enter an area and proceed in humility, which is what all study process boils down to. Time to resume the journey and the quest. Especially when so little of life is left, and so many of its invaluables have been damaged, lost, or taken away. Living in the middle of death requires a celebration of life as a protest. I shall do my best to continue mine. Agnieszka Justitia, the first of Honestia, the noble queen, the guardianess of truth and justice, the protectress of the pure value, the Virgin. Agnipolis, the 1st of October, 2020.